Welcome to the Inside Housing Podcast with Renick, where we talk housing, real estate, and investments. Here we go. All right, Genevieve, welcome to Inside Housing. Glad you could join me.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Got to beat the cold weather.
Yeah, it's nice and cozy in here.
It is. All right. I like to open it up and just tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? How long you been in real estate?
So my name is Genevieve Smyth.
Smyth?
It is Smyth.
Smyth. Okay.
It is Smyth.
I always thought it was Smith.
Everyone does. So that's one of my best fun facts is that my last name is Smyth.
Smyth. Got it.
There are people who, I don't like to correct people because it feels rude. So people will know me for a decade.
Okay. All right.
And just call me Smith and I just let it roll. But it's actually Smyth.
It's actually Smyth.
So it's pronounced as if there were an E on the end, but it's an invisible E.
Got it. Okay.
So it is Smyth. My husband's family, hundreds of years ago, was Scottish. That's where it comes from.
A little bit of the Scottish in you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, he likes to do a fake Scottish accent.
Hey, my grandmother is actually Scottish.
Oh, yes, like recently, for real.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, my mother's British and my grandmother's
Oh,
Scottish.
yes, I forgot about your mom. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So, Genevieve.
So Smyth. So my name is Genevieve
Smyth.
Smyth.
Got
Start
it.
there. I am a real estate agent in Vermont. I primarily serve what people think of as the west coast of Vermont.
What would that
So
like?
so the Champlain Islands, and then Chittenden County, Addison County, and Rutland County. So Lake Champlain, top to bottom. It's a beautiful area. I love it a lot. I've lived throughout that region.
Are you
so I
from
know-
Vermont?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I say I'm from New England. So I was born in Grand Isle, but only actually lived there for a few months and then moved to India for a year for my dad's work.
All right.
I turned 1 in India and lived there until his work changed again. And then we moved to Boston. And then I lived in the suburbs of Boston for preschool through 8th grade.
Got it.
And then I went to boarding school in Connecticut for high school. And then during that time, my dad was still living in Massachusetts and my mom was living in Vermont. So I split my time off of boarding school between Massachusetts and Vermont. And then I went to UVM for college.
Got
So
it.
then
That's right.
officially
That's
moved
right.
back to
That's right. We
Vermont.
shared
Yes.
that in common. Okay.
Where we didn't meet, but
I-
should have maybe met.
Yeah, it was 2013.
Yeah, so we definitely were in the same realms.
yeah.
Yeah. And then met my now husband shortly after college, and so have been in Vermont ever since. Long way of saying, yes, I'm from Vermont. I was born here, but I didn't grow up in Vermont.
Okay. But
So it's,
but
yeah.
you've had enough the pull of Vermont and being born
Yes.
here. It's home.
Yes, it is absolutely home. So even when we lived in Boston, my dad would actually tell people we were from Burlington. So as a little kid who I had not yet spent most of my life in Vermont as I have now, we'd always come to Vermont like for vacations and weekends because all of my grandparents were here. And so I'd be in elementary school and my dad would be like, oh, we're from Burlington. We just live in Boston now. And I'd be like, that's interesting because I don't know Burlington at all, but apparently I'm from there. It's always been home.
When you think
Yeah.
about it, people associate, when they think of Vermont, they
Yeah.
think of skiing, Jay
Yeah.
Peak, and they think of Burlington. And if you say, I'm actually from Grand Isle, they're like, huh, where is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So Vermont was always home.
So it's always home.
Yeah.
And you go to college, seems. And so what were you doing in college?
So in college, my degree is in economics, and I self-designed a minor in water resources.
Water resources.
Yes. And so I thought I was going to be an environmental economist. That was the idea.
Okay.
Which is still a very cool field that I enjoy reading about and keeping up on. But when I graduated, I realized that to be an environmental economist, you really need to like be a professor or you can be a researcher for the federal government. And I realized in lifestyle, I didn't actually like either of those choices.
Okay.
Like I liked the intellectual content of it, but I did not see myself as a professor or a federal government bureaucrat. So I tried to figure out what I could do with an economics degree that would still be math and problem solving because I love those things.
All right, so you identified pretty early that the thing you like to do is problem solve.
Yes, that was
It'll
like
be it's
always my
relevant
thing.
later
That
to
will
real
stay,
estate.
exactly. That will stay relevant.
Okay.
That is still my favorite thing. I became an accountant and did that for a number of years, and I liked the problem solving and the math of that. But again, the day-to-day lifestyle was still not the fit for me, particularly when the pandemic hit and everything was fully remote. And then the firm that I worked for stayed fully remote after the pandemic. It was just me by myself looking at a computer 8 to 10 hours
So
a
you
day.
weren't getting that human
There was
interaction?
no human
Nothing.
interaction.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd have a Zoom, and that would be my talking to people for the day. And so one of the things that really drives me and fulfills me is knowing that I'm helping people. And so without human interaction,
Hard to
really
do that.
hard to feel
It
like
is.
you're
It's a little-
helping
It's
people.
a little hard. Yeah.
Like in an abstract way, I'm like, I'm probably making their lives easier by doing this paperwork for them, but I'm not actually getting that gratification of we get to sit down together and talk about how your life is easier and how I can help you and solve your problems.
So then at what point did you decide that real estate was potentially something that you wanted to do?
So I started actually as a real estate investor. So when I was still an accountant and I was actually on maternity leave with my second child, being on maternity leave, I felt like I needed something else to do for some reason. And so I thought that an investment property would be a good secondary income stream and a new interesting challenge to try. So we bought a condo in South Burlington. I figured that would be an easy first step, but
Okay.
uncomplicated
Sure. I feel
investment
like
to
there's a
start.
story there.
Yeah. And that went so well and was so fulfilling that it like I was hooked. And I was like, this is what I am meant to do.
So were you hooked in which part of real estate? Into, oh, I just want to buy and acquire more properties?
All of
or
it. I loved all of it. I
Or-
used a realtor who was great, and I definitely credit him with helping show me how great this process is because I had fun with looking for the properties and going through the contract period and the closing. And so I saw how enjoyable that process could be, and I saw how I could help people with it. And so that's when that feeling really hit of this is for me. Both the property management and doing it myself, but also serving other people and knowing that I could use my skill set and my experiences to help other people who didn't know how to do it yet, didn't want to learn how to do it, but just wanted to have the end result. There's a lot of that. And that I finally found the thing that checked all the boxes for me. Yeah.
So let's fast forward. So you
Yes.
jump in, you become a real estate agent because it's not super long ago.
Right.
But however, in real estate, 3 years can
Right.
feel like a lifetime. So what are some of the things that, as you think back to like your experience buying and you think of your experience now working with buyers and sellers, what are some of the things that you notice now that you have this different lens?
There's a lot of differences. I think one thing that I encourage my clients now who are buyers is to be really inquisitive. I think when I was a buyer, I was hesitant to hurt people's feelings, which I think that's a common thing, particularly for women. You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, whatever you're doing. And so I didn't ask for much in transactions because I personally, as a buyer, I had the goal of I want it to go smoothly for the other person. And not that I didn't get good deals, because I definitely did, because I had math on my side. But that I was focused on not offending people, so I didn't ask a lot of questions. And I just missed chances to learn.
So what would be like an example of that?
So when I was a buyer, I actually didn't know that I was allowed to go to inspections.
Really?
Yeah. So that also might have been a
that's
miss on my
interesting.
realtor
Okay.
side.
Slightly, yeah.
But I thought that the realtor would go and he would oversee, and then I would get the report. So I make sure that all my buyers understand that not only are they very welcome to come to inspection, but I encourage them to come and to ask questions, and that the inspection is one of the best opportunities you have to learn about the property.
Okay.
When you're doing your initial visits, when you're just looking at properties, sometimes those can be really fast,
Yep.
particularly if it's a competitive market. there are plenty of times where you might have 15 minutes at a showing.
So wait a minute, back up.
Yeah.
So what do you mean you're going to have 15 minutes at the initial showing?
The initial showing.
God.
Those can be really quick. Not as much now because it's winter and things are slower, but there are plenty of times in the summer where people are coming out, we're going in, the next people are coming in, and you feel that time constraint. Whereas at the inspection, you have as much time as you want. It's just you. There's no one pressuring you to leave. You can look in every cabinet. You can test every doorknob. You have your realtor there and you have the inspector there, who are both great resources of housing expertise. And you can ask all your questions. You can spend 5 hours if you want to spend 5 hours
Sure.
at the house. And that was something I didn't know I had that option when I was a buyer. And so that's something that's really important to me when I'm representing buyers, to make them understand this is your time, that you can get whatever you want out of this. And so that they feel in control of that time and that they leave knowing that all their questions are answered.
So that's an interesting point, right? Because if you think about it, you do a showing
Yeah.
and you maybe get 15, 20 minutes in a house, especially if it's a competitive situation.
Yeah.
And then you have to make this really big decision. And then a lot of people were accustomed to, especially during COVID, or not COVID, I would say like the couple years after COVID, where I've had people come to me all the time and be like, do we even do inspections? Do I need one?
Right.
So what's like your view on that? Because that's a good point. You can sit there and you can spend 5 hours really just getting to know a house. But from that, how do you condense that into a showing where you're not doing that and then
Right.
be able to make this decision?
So a lot of it really comes down to the buyer's decision-making styles. And so that was something that I didn't anticipate, but a lot of real estate is really decision coaching.
Decision coaching. Okay.
So everyone has their own sort of approach to making a choice. Some people might need to call all their family members. Some people might need to sleep on it for a week. Some people walk into a house, trust their gut. They're in the entryway. They know this is the one. And so when we're doing initial showings, one of the things I am doing is trying to read my clients and understand what their decision-making style is and how I can support them and be the counterbalance to whatever it is. So if they're someone who needs weeks and weeks to make a choice, then my focus is going to be on helping them really understand, like, what are the key criteria? Like, maybe they need to be in a certain school district. They need to have a certain number of bedrooms. And like, those are the non-negotiable things. Sometimes people who have a slower decision-making style can get really caught up on things that are not their main things. And so there can be that 3-bedroom house in that school district, and they're like, oh, those baseboards drive me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fine. Let's think about what you need.
So breaking apart
Yeah.
the needs versus the want. Okay.
And then on the flip side, for the people who are really gut driven and can walk in, they're in the first room and they're like, I love it. This is perfect. It's the same, but it's the opposite. It's reminding them, okay, we said you needed these 3 things. Let's walk through and make sure we actually have those here. I love that you love it. The vibes are great. But if this does not have the finished basement that you have to do your job, then this isn't right.
So how do you square that though? If you have like someone who, as you say, like decision-making style is
Yeah.
it's a gut check, it's a
Yeah.
vibe check.
Yeah.
And there is definitely
And
a holy
I'm all
vibe.
about vibes. I am not axing vibes at all.
So you walk in and they're like, great.
Mm.
Is it, so you feel like you're also there to remind them, hey, this is something you said you needed, you want?
Yeah.
Or can that change?
It can definitely change. And so it's a lot of listening.
A lot of listening. Yeah, people don't realize. They don't realize
Yeah.
that. I feel like there's this assumption that realtors are just going to talk really fast, like that comparison to used car salesmen. And I'm like, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Not
So
at
a
all.
lot of listening and you're figuring out decisions, styles. So it's trying to tease out, like, really at the heart of it, like, what do you need and what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people aren't clear about what they need or want, and that's totally fine. And so we can learn that during the process. There are plenty of times. So I always, when I get a new client, I always start with a 30-minute video call. And I have a list of questions that we run through about why they're looking right now. I always ask why before anything else. And then I ask them if they have criteria. And a lot of times they don't. And that's totally fine. They're like, I have this lease. It's ending in June and I don't want to rent again. I want to buy. But that's it. I don't have kids. I work remotely. I could live anywhere. I don't really know what I like because I've never bought a house before. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We can just go see a bunch of different houses. Like we can go see condos. We can go see fixer-uppers with a bunch of land. And once buyers are actually in properties, it tends to become really quickly clear what they want. I think the internet for real estate is such a gift in that it gives people so much information and they can see so much, and is such a curse because people think that's it. And they think when they've seen a listing online that they have seen it. And that is not the same as being in a house.
No, it is not. And I call it like the house like catfish effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're just like, it looks so good in those
Right.
pictures. And they're like, this is it. And the price is right. And you're like, your spidey senses are going off. And you walk in and you're like, and the first thing they say, they go, this is not like the pictures. And you're like, they said it was by a river. And it's like a tiny puddle.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you are, and you're walking through, and expand, because I don't think I've heard this before from like an agent's perspective, which is I'm there to help them with their decision-making style. So what are some of the styles that you see?
So, like I said, there's a big variety, and all of them are correct. They're all the right answer, but it varies. And I think most interestingly is when you're working with a couple and they have really different decision-making styles. And so you're like coaching in two different directions. You're like, I need you to slow down and focus on what matters. And I need you to like pick up the pace and come join us. And so, like I said, like all of them are correct because at the end of the day, it is their house. And if they don't feel comfortable with their decision, that's a massive problem. Like we are not going to go under contract on a property that they don't feel good about. So it's a lot of listening, like I said, but it's listening both to their words and their body language. It's watching their faces when they walk in a room. You can tell, if you're paying attention, you can tell how someone feels about a house without them saying anything at all.
That's a really good point.
And so that's a big part of what I'm doing when we're in a house. I'm looking at it with them, but I am really looking at them. And then I'm answering their questions. I work with a lot of first-time home buyers. We'll walk into a basement and be like, what's that thing? That's an oil tank. Let's talk about how an oil tank works. Like all of this is new to them. So I'm answering their questions. I'm making sure that they understand the house, understand how it functions, what it offers, what it needs them to do to take care of it and live in it. I think really contrary to the used car salesman stereotype, I don't have a product. I don't own any of these houses. I don't care which one they buy. A used car salesman is, I need to sell this car because management said we got a quota of 30 we're selling this month. None of these houses are my product. I'm not selling anything.
And so that's a point that I try to explain to people, which is the buyer's buying and there's a seller who's selling their house. Like the agent doesn't technically have that product to sell. They're a conduit, right? They're to negotiate, help, they're to really help in the decision-making process, but they're not selling it.
No.
So as you're saying you work with a lot of first-time home buyers. So what are you seeing right now that are a lot of the questions, concerns? What are you seeing with first-time home buyers now? Because we're seeing like a shift in terms of who are the first-time home buyers.
So one of the big shifts that people might be aware of if they're following housing news is that the average age of first-time home buyers is now 40. So first-time home buyers are not 18-year-olds. They're not recent college grads. They are adults, often with families. Not to say we don't have younger first-time home buyers, and young people out there, if you're in the position, I encourage you to get into homeownership.
But on
the average, they're 40. And so what they're looking for is a fully established home. And so they're needing something that can last a little longer than the like 3 to 5 years that is typical for a younger first time home buyer. It's not just a stepping stone. For these folks who are a little bit older, renting has been their stepping stone. They're landing in a house. So that's really different. They're caring more about really foundational things about the home, longevity of building materials, the age and type of heating system. Because they're a little bit older and they might have families, a lot of these folks don't have a huge budget to spend on repairs. They don't have a lot of flexibility month to month because they have family obligations. They have people to take care of. That needs to be their priority. So making sure that they have a house that works for them, because they're not just going to bounce right out of it in a couple of years, is becoming really important.
So I think you like math. So I think some of the statistics around that is the average time that people are staying in homes. I think it went up to like your first home. I think it was like 7 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's up to 11. So it means that the concept of a starter home is what I feel
Right.
is eroding.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have first time home buyers. They're coming in, they're looking more for, like you said, established home,
Yeah.
something that they can see themselves in for a longer time. So
Yeah.
what are like common concerns that are going right, or things that a lot of people wouldn't just obviously know? Because we get a lot of questions, right?
Yeah.
So you must be seeing all sorts of things out
Yeah. So there's a lot, and there's always a wide variety because people are all unique, and that's awesome. And they should want different things. So one thing we see a lot, Vermont has some of the oldest housing stock in the country. So often we are dealing with homes that do need work, that have systems that are at or beyond their expected lifespan. So when we're looking at a house and we're looking at the budget, it's not just the mortgage, insurance, and taxes. It's also helping people budget for those repairs that they know are going to happen. And so in knowing that they're going to need a new boiler, including that when they're doing their budget calculations.
So someone's doing their budget calculation and they find the home, it meets the criteria, and they're trying to establish a budget. You know, one of my questions that would be, is this something I put into the house in
Right.
terms of the offer, or is this something that I just have to expect to pay later? How are you handling those kind of, because those questions must be coming
Yeah,
at you.
absolutely. And I would say all of these are options. So again, it comes back to priorities. Let's say it's a boiler that needs to be replaced. Let's just use that as an example to make it a little simpler. That is something that we could have a purchase price reduction or a seller closing cost concession to cover the expected price of replacing the boiler. And that is something that we could take into account before we put in the offer if we already have that information. It's something, if that comes up on inspection, we can ask for it then. If it's a competitive situation and this house is otherwise perfect and checks all their boxes and they're like, we have to live in this home, we don't have to ask for it in the contract, and they can plan to do that during the time of home ownership. But plan to do it eyes wide open, not this is a surprise that's going to land upon them, that they're deciding the best option for our family is to live in this house ASAP, and we are doing that knowing we're taking on this problem. So that's what I mean by like all of the other options, that again, there's no one size fits all answer. It's about having all the information, making sure the buyer is fully informed so they can make the choice that's right for them.
So you have first time home buyers, you're explaining like they have these different options. We're also seeing a change in who those first time home buyers are. I'm curious, as you're working with people and you're helping them, and you're pairing that with your decision styles, what are some cautions or some things that you try to emphasize as people make these different choices?
So as a general caution, it would just be like, don't brush anything off. Don't just be like, I'm not going to think about that problem because I want this house. Still want the house and still go for it if that's the right choice for you, but do it with full information. And so needing repairs or needing a future renovation or expansion, like these are not deal breakers. I don't think anyone should move into a house thinking like, I never got to do anything with this, because that's not true.
Oh no.
Like,
If you own a house, it even I think a good example, I had someone call me and they bought a condo, and sometimes with condos, that's a whole other conversation.
yeah,
Breaking apart what like an association takes
yeah,
care of versus what the homeowner. But there are some where you walk in and it's like turnkey ready. It never means that over the life of that house you're not going to be
yeah,
doing things. So,
exactly. Yeah. And so just making sure people understand that and they feel comfortable with what they're taking on, because like you said, like condos still need work. They probably need less work than a single family home from 1870. So making sure people are comfortable with what they are getting themselves into, because I think the worst case scenario for anyone is to live in a house for a couple years and then be shocked when something goes wrong. Be like, why didn't I know that this was going to happen?
along those lines, so that's where like in the beginning you were talking about like the value of inspections and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So how do you talk about that? Because there's still some people who are like, I don't know if I need it, and it may cost them
Right.
sometimes like the competitive edge in a
Yeah.
house. So what's your walkthrough on inspections, and how does that help educate a buyer in terms of like maybe knowing what should or shouldn't happen, and
Right.
when do you not need it? When are you potentially comfortable with assuming the risk?
So when we're talking about inspections and whether or not to include them in an offer, one of the things that I'm really trying to help buyers understand is that the inspection ultimately is for them. And so if they need this information to feel comfortable living in a house, then we have to include it. If it means that they lose the offer and we have to move on, then it wasn't the right house for them. An inspection certainly, like, it can play in to future negotiations, but I never want a buyer to go and being, I'm getting an inspection because I want to negotiate on it. You're getting an inspection because you need the information. If the information is dramatically different than what we expected it to be, then of course we need to renegotiate, because our offer was based on an incorrect understanding. But that the purpose of the inspection is to be that first learning point
Okay.
about the home.
Then if we kind of walk back from that,
Yeah.
right? Because it's as somebody like first time home buying and they're listening, and so then you go back to the showing, and what are like key things that you're trying to pick out and identify that get you to the point where you're under contract? Because there's big steps in there.
Yeah. So like I said, like for the showing, for me, it's really about the buyer. And for the buyer, it's really about the home. So I'm making sure that they're seeing all the things that matter to them. So they're seeing every space. We're opening every door. Sometimes you think something is a closet and it's another bathroom. You got to be sure. We are always walking through the basement, or I will crawl through the crawl space, even if they don't, and tell
Okay.
them what's down there.
You got to get dirty down
It's
there. So
like they are seeing every corner. It is quick, but they're not missing anything. We're talking about the utility systems. We're talking about the roof. So it's rapid. I can talk really fast, so that
okay.
helps. So we're at least getting an introduction to everything, so they're not driving away being like, huh, I kind of wonder how the heating system works. They know if it's heat pumps, they know if it's oil fired furnace. So there should be no big surprises. There should just be learning more that comes later.
So you've walked someone through, you've done all that, you figured out their styles.
Yeah.
What would you say from now your point of view is the thing that you appreciate most or you like the most when you get to the end, right? Because it started out, you got into real estate to be with people,
Yeah.
interact, to help. Do you feel like that helping portion is more, less than what you thought when you came into it?
I think it's probably more helping, and I'm so glad that it is. It's the relationships that I develop with clients are such a gift. It continues to amaze me how well you can get to know someone really quick when you are working together on something that is so important. Even if the transaction timeline is only like 3 months, like I am deeply involved in their lives for those 3 months. And I'm still involved after that. We don't talk 10 times a day, but I never say goodbye to anybody. I just say see you soon. But it is so deeply involved on the interpersonal connections. It's just been really gratifying. I love it.
Genevieve Smyth?
Yes,
Is
indeed.
that right?
That's me.
Appreciate you coming on Inside Housing today, and I have a feeling we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Renick. And honestly, it was so fun.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
look forward to doing it again.
Here we go.